Made with Spoken.
The Interview. Zaden Storm, U9 West Crescent Region. I walked into our cramped living room wearing my black dress pants, my black silk mandarin collar shirt, and my black snakeskin shoes buffed to an almost blinding shine. I thought I looked damn good, but I could tell by the way Mama scrunched up her nose that I didn't pass muster. "No, Zaden, no," she said, shaking her head. "You look like a waiter in one of those wannabe high-class restaurants or a debonair undertaker." I shrugged and grinned. "Well, what's wrong with that?" I asked. Of course, I knew perfectly well what was wrong with it, but I had just turned 17 and enjoyed pissing off my mother for my own amusement. "And why didn't you get a haircut like I asked?" she nagged. "Because I like my hair the way it is," I told her. "And if Ruby Biotech seriously wants to hire me, they will have to take me the way I am." Her plump brown face reddened, and she pounded her fist on the arm of the chair. "Zaden, you are not taking this interview seriously at all. Listen, Ruby Biotech wants to hire you straight out of high school. They'll pay for your education through your PhD. You'll be set for life. You might even be able to live inside the dome one day." I rolled my eyes. I hated when she mentioned her dream of me living in the dome. I think it started when my no-count father knocked up some rich domer's daughter back when I was running around in short pants. She figured if I earned my way inside the dome, it would be her perfect revenge. But that was the rub. It would be her perfect revenge, not mine. I didn't give a rat's ass about my father. He was less than a stranger to me. I hadn't seen hide nor hair of him since I was 4. "What's wrong with living in the upper ninth?" I asked defiantly. "I was born here, upper ninth, Crescent region, deep outside. This is where my life is." Mama commenced to shaking her head again. "Zaden, Zaden, Zaden," she sighed. "When will you ever learn? There is no special honor in being poor." Now it was my turn to get pissed. "What's poor about us, huh? I've always had enough to eat, a roof over my head, and people who love me. You've got your job at the hospital. You've got your clinic on the side, and you've taught me everything you know. We're doing good work. So tell me, how the hell are we poor?" She shot up out of her chair and put her hands on her ample hips. "Your Aunt Ebby died of cancer when she was 25. Your cousin Willie passed at 30. At least 2 children a week die at the hospital due to some environmental crap we can't even figure out. You can't even walk outside your house around here without dressing up like some mutant astronaut because the air is poison and thick enough to chew. You don't have to do that in the dome. In there, the sky is always blue, and you can walk around in your bare clothes. Trust me, it's a good place to be. You'll die far too soon on the outside. You should be thankful for this opportunity. Maybe you'll help discover something that will heal this place." I folded my arms tight. I wasn't buying it. Yeah, there was no denying Dr. Lillian Ruby and his army of geniuses had discovered some wonderful shit. Thing was, you had to have mucho credits to be able to afford it. Like that HIV-5A omnibus vaccine they cooked up a couple of years ago. 3 shots, over 3 months, and you were golden for 20 years. But those shots cost all your arms and legs and part of your head. What's the use of all that medical innovation if the people who need it most can't afford it? I was rehearsing all sorts of witty rejoinders in my head, but Mama beat me to the punch. "Zaden," she said in her tough love voice, "please go upstairs and change into that suit I bought. Do it for me. Do it for me." Damn, I couldn't argue with that. It got me every time. I trudged up the stairs and into my room. I went straight to my closet and pulled out the suit. It was midnight navy and conservatively cut. Not my style at all. I glanced at the clock on my dresser. It was 8:15, and the dude from Ruby Biotech was due to arrive by 9 o'clock. I had 45 minutes, not enough time to argue. I threw the suit on the bed and got undressed. I redressed thinking about how glad I was going to be once this day was finally over. Mama would have never found out about Ruby Biotech's interest in me if my school's counselor, Mr. Tanakis, hadn't gone to the hospital to get his appendix taken out. She was his nurse, and he blabbed about how some Ruby Biotech headhunter stopped by his office one afternoon asking to see my school records. Man, was I ever in some hot water when she got home. Did you know about this? She asked. Yeah, I did, I replied nonchalantly. Why the hell didn't you tell me? Mr. Tanaka said they were just looking. I didn't think anything would come of it. She turned several shades of red and whacked me upside the head. Fool, she snapped. Ruby Biotech never just looks. If they're looking, believe me, they're interested. Actually, I told her the truth. I really didn't think anything would come of it. Sure, my grades and achievement test scores were through the roof, and I'd won a couple math and IT awards, but I wasn't exactly a model student. Ever since middle school, I had a knack for getting into fights. You see, I was kind of pretty and like guys, so bullies picked on me figuring I would be a soft target. But on the other hand, I liked girls almost as much, and I could kick anyone's ass who dared to challenge me. I was an unabashed nerd and proud of it, but I could also dunk a basketball like nobody's business, and folks couldn't figure out whether I was black or white. One afternoon, when I just started the 9th grade, I got ambushed at the shuttle stop by 6 seniors. After I systematically kicked their butts into the next century, I asked them what made them want to pick on me in the first place. Because we can't figure out what the hell you are, one cried out in frustration. Are you a fag or not? Are you a geek or a jock? I just felt sorry for the guy. What the hell? I said, I know who I am, so what's it matter to you? But fighting with my peers wasn't my only problem. I chafed at authority and was constantly locking horns with my teachers. Mostly it was because I had a low tolerance for stupidity and I was smarter than most of them. I wasn't exactly abusive. I never cussed them out or anything so crass, but I did embarrass the hell out of them and enjoy it. Although the suit felt like a straitjacket, it didn't look half bad. I styled it with a white silk shirt and a slate blue geometric pattern tie. Wasn't quite sure what to do with the hair, though. I probably should have cut it off and donated it like Mama wanted. It was long, way past my shoulders, and thick and heavy. Tying it all back in a ponytail looked too severe, so I settled on a French braid, leaving a few strands strategically loose to frame my face. I glanced at the clock again, 8:40. I had 20 minutes until showtime. I descended the stairs once more. Mama met me at the foot and hugged her approval, although she did whisper, "You should have cut your damn hair." The Ruby Biotech recruiter arrived precisely at 9 o'clock, and when he took off his helmet and zipped out of his blue and silver company-issued high suit, I nearly fainted. Mama was right. Ruby Biotech wasn't just fishing. They were truly interested. They'd sent none other than David Grove, Lily and Ruby's number 2, to interview me. The only thing that would have been more amazing is if the big man had showed up himself. The first thing I noticed was that Dr. Grove was just as gorgeous in real life as he was on video. I was tempted to stick a pin in him just to make sure he was real. He wore a dark navy suit, almost the same color as mine, but it was obvious that his cost at least 3 times more and was made especially for him. He walked over to me with his hand extended. "Greetings, Mr. Storm," he said, smiling, his pale gray eyes staring deeply into my own. "Finally, I get to match a face with the name and psychometrics. I'm David Grove." I shook his hand in a daze. "Nice to meet you, Dr. Grove." My voice sounded tinny and boyish, and my Bayou accent suddenly seemed thicker than usual. I was just a little starstruck. He placed a hand on my shoulder, and I almost died. "I'm not a real doctor," he said, almost flirtatiously, which made me wonder, did he find me attractive too? "I just have a PhD in biochemistry and another in physics. I don't also have a medical degree like Dr. Ruby." Mama was still impressed. "Wow," she gushed, 2 doctorates? Already? You don't look very old." It was positively embarrassing. She sounded like a drunk tweenie bopper. We both did. He smiled again. "Ah, Miss Storm," he said, I assure you I'm much older than I look." Then he walked back to the huge armored briefcase he'd brought with him, opened it, and pulled out a brushed silver tube nearly a foot high and about 8 inches around. He twisted the tube open to reveal a living, blooming African violet. I was astounded. I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen a flowering plant in the flesh outside of a science museum. "For you, Miss Storm," Dr. Grove announced with a flourish. "Now, which one of these windows gets the most light?" "The one in the kitchen, actually," Mama excitedly replied. "Well then," he said, reverently handing her the plant, "maybe you can help Violet get situated in her new home while Zaden and I have a little talk." "Certainly, Dr. Grove," she said cheerfully, and ran to take her new pet to the kitchen. I swear she was like a little girl with him, so eager to please. If I, or anyone else for that matter, had spoken to her like that, she would have sent them flying into next week. After Mama vamoosed, Dr. Grove and I stood and stared at each other for a while. He did find me attractive. I could feel it, but he was also committed to someone. I noticed a distinctive and expensive wedding band on his left hand. Not that anything would have happened anyway, but a quick daydream never hurt. "How long is that plant going to live?" I finally asked. "Things have a tendency to die out here, you know. It will last as long as your mother cares for it," he replied. "It has been specially bred to withstand the rigors of the outside." That was a nice trick to get Mama to leave the room. He smiled knowingly and then sat in my mother's armchair like it was his own. "She would have hovered," he said, "and that would have made things difficult. We need to be able to talk freely. I want to get an accurate picture of who you are. If everything goes well, we are poised to make a substantial investment in your future." I sat on the sofa. "I suspect you know plenty about me already. Your headhunter has stopped by my school several times, and I suspect all those extra tests I had to take were yours." He settled back in the chair and crossed his legs. "You make everything sound so conspiratorial." I crossed my legs as well. "Well, isn't it?" Dr. Grove chuckled quietly. "Ah," he said, "your feisty nature is showing. So you read about that, huh? So you like to fight both your teachers and your peers. That's good. It shows you will stand your ground." "Why?" I asked. "Are there lots of knockdown dragouts in the hallowed halls of Ruby Biotech?" Dr. Grove broke into a full-throated laugh. "Hell no. We are very civilized, but Dr. Ruby does like people who will stand up to him. It's not enough to have a nimble mind. You must also have a strong character." I laughed a bit myself. I seriously doubt I would pick a fight with Lillian Ruby. He would intimidate the hell out of me. He's way smarter than I am. "Lillian is smarter than most of us," agreed Dr. Grove. I noticed he slipped and called the good doctor by his first name. Were they true friends as well as business associates? "What's Dr. Ruby like?" I asked him. He smiled warmly and maybe even blushed a little. Yes, they were actually friends. And I also suspected Dr. Grove had a secret crush on him, or at least a moderate case of idol worship. "He's very thoughtful and loyal. He's passionate about his work. Very hands-on, but he doesn't micromanage. He's slow to anger, but once you make him angry, he tends to stay that way for a while, but usually he has a very good reason." He leaned forward, pulled his tablet from his briefcase, and started moving things around on the screen. I guess he was looking through some of the intel the company had gathered about me. He took a deep breath and said, "Well, Mr. Storm, let's talk about you." "I don't think I'm all that interesting," I said. "Besides, you've probably gathered all the pertinent information you need to know." "Don't sell yourself short, Mr. Storm," he said. "I find you fascinating." He smiled, and his voice had that flirtatious edge to it again. "But there's one thing that puzzles me. Your school counselor told us that when he informed you of our representative's visit to your school, you seemed rather nonplussed about that whole deal. Why?" I told him what I'd told my mother. "I didn't really think anything would come of it." He pursed his lips. He definitely wasn't satisfied with that answer. "Why?" he asked again. This was serious. I got the distinct impression he really wanted to know. It was time to get on my game. I know my test scores and my grades were more than sufficient to get a whole lot of companies interested in me. I know that. False modesty isn't my style. Everybody who was anybody wanted a piece of Zaden Storm. For once, they wanted to be the ones to help some poor boy from the deep outside to make good. But after they poked around a bit and found out about all the fights I'd gotten into, as well as the less than sterling attitude I had in the classroom, they all backed away. You see, they all wanted some token from the deep outside, some poster kid so the world could see how progressive and cool they were, but they didn't want what the deep outside had made me. Out here, things are different, Dr. Grove. If you don't fight, you die. Now, that doesn't make me a working class hero. It doesn't make me special, but it's part of what makes me me. I figured Ruby Biotech would be the same way. He was silent for a while. Maybe I'd been a little bit too honest. I assure you, he said, that we were not in the market for coolness credits. We haven't seriously looked at someone from the deep outside in several years because, frankly, once we dig a little deeper, there hasn't been anyone who's measured up to our standards. It's not just your test scores and your academic and athletic achievements that spark our interest in you. Although I do have to say those are truly phenomenal. You're the smartest kid to come out of the outer 10 zones in almost 15 years. But you also help your mother run a neighborhood medical clinic. You've produced some fairly decent online comics, and at the tender age of 17, you're well on your way to becoming a full-fledged hongan. Now it was my turn to be dumbstruck. I don't know how long I sat there with my mouth hanging open. First of all, how had Ruby Biotech found out about all that stuff? Mama's medical clinic was strictly on the down low. She didn't advertise because she wasn't exactly licensed, but she was sick of people dying or living with intolerable pain just because they needed a few simple stitches or a splint for a broken finger and they didn't have the credits to afford them. Our broke-ass corrupt government wasn't going to do anything about it, and donor charity was too inconsistent and slow, so she decided to step up. The online comics were all on private sites, or so I thought, and most of them were pretty racy. And the hongan bit? I didn't think anyone but my closest friends knew about that. I kept the voodoo stuff close to my chest. That was my religion, that was my heart, that was real. I didn't want anyone to think I was a poser or tourist clown. There were far too many of those in the Crescent. I don't know what to say, I finally said, because I truly didn't. A self-satisfied grin played across Dr. Grove's lips. That domer had me right where he wanted me. How did you find out about all that stuff? I asked. Well, he began, despite the fact your mother's clinic is officially underground, it's a well-known secret, especially in the 8th and 9th zones. You've done a lot of good work, and people applaud and respect you for it. As for the online comics, as you can imagine, we have a lot of geeks working at our company. They have seen the work of Papa Z and enjoy it. As for the voodoo, it's an open secret your mother is a mambo and a powerful and gifted one at that. So you figure like mother, like son? No, he firmly replied. I have heard your name whispered in certain circles. Frankly, I found that hard to believe. Although I'd heard rumors of serious domer practitioners, David Grove would be the last person I'd expect to see at a ceremony. He seemed like he was wound a bit too tight. I didn't imagine he'd be receptive enough to let the gods climb inside. Tell me about you and voodoo, he said. I understand you have been devoted from a fairly early age. Well, if this was a trap, I was going to walk in with my eyes open and have a little fun. Recently, I'd gotten the outline of Urzuli's Vaver tattooed on my back to be filled in and colorized at a later date. Even Mama didn't know about it, and it was a good thing she wasn't in the room because if she had seen what I was about to do, she would have freaked. I stood up, turned my back towards Dr. Grove, seductively removed my suit jacket, untucked my shirt, and lifted up the back so he could get a good gander. To my bitter disappointment, he didn't miss a beat. "Erzuli," he said. Then he stood and walked up beside me. I could feel his eyes boring into my skin. I could even feel him breathing and knew he was slightly aroused, but he was careful not to touch. He removed his jacket, unbuttoned his left shirt sleeve, and scrunched up that sleeve a little past his elbow to reveal a tiny tattoo of the same vavor on his forearm. "I have also met her," he whispered in my ear. "Tell me, Mr. Storm, how many times has she ridden you?" I felt the blood rush to my face. I had to fight to catch my breath. "I've been possessed more times than I can count. The first time happened when I was 13. For me, it happened fairly recently and only once, almost by accident." He stepped away, rebuttoned his shirt sleeve, and put his jacket back on. But I counted among one of the most profound and thrilling experiences of my life. I tucked my shirt back into my pants and put my jacket back on as well. Dr. Grove and I sat on the sofa almost simultaneously. We stared at each other for a moment and then busted up laughing. "Man," I confessed, "I guess I had you all wrong." "Yes, you did." We laughed some more, and I kept expecting Mama to emerge from her hiding place to ask us just what it was we found so funny. Then David Grove's face got all pleading and serious. "Tell me," he said, "when you are possessed, what do you think actually happens?" "Pardon?" I asked, more to buy time than anything else. "What do you think actually happens during possession?" he repeated. So that was going to be the question. I could tell by the look in Dr. Grove's eyes. In every interview, there is one question more than any other that determines your fate. If I answered this one correctly, I'd be set for life. I took a deep breath and tried to think of the kind of answer he wanted. I know his boss, Lillian Ruby, had cultivated a reputation as a ruthless skeptic, but I didn't get that sense at all when I reviewed Ruby's few recent public statements. What got on Dr. Ruby's nerves were posers and charlatans, and the Crescent was littered with them. Fortune tellers, ghost charmers, fake voodoo priests, you name it. They pissed me off too. It's not that I didn't believe in things beyond the veil. I obviously did. I also believe said veil was getting more frayed by the day due to the Crescent's environmental degradation. The world was definitely changing. Hungry ghosts no longer kept to the dark. There would soon be a time when even the least sensitive would know what it meant to be haunted. Still, that was no excuse to descend into fuzzy thinking. I'd always thought Dr. Ruby was a very spiritual man. He had to be, or else he couldn't do the things he did. He had a profound respect for life, no matter what kind of life it was. There used to be a bootleg video of him online discussing the genetics of a particular bacterium. The lecture was so technical, it made my eyes cross. But at one point, he turns towards the digital blackboard and marvels at the incomprehensible string of letters, numbers, and shapes he scrawled. "Look at this," he announces breathlessly, his southern accent leaking through. "It is perfect. Everything just fits together. We humans think we're the only ones made in the image of the gods, but even the so-called simplest forms of life are divine." I also suspected David Grove needed an answer for himself. Here he was, a serious scientist with 2 doctorates, and he'd had a spiritual experience so profound he'd gotten a tattoo to commemorate it. But how could he make it fit in with the rest of his life? "Do you want me to explain possession in scientific terms?" I asked. "Not necessarily," he replied. "Good," I said, "because I can't. I mean, I could say that Erzuli is simply a pattern of brainwaves elicited by specific drum rhythms, but that is like saying that African violet you gave my mother is nothing more than the code embedded in its DNA. It's profoundly disrespectful and tells you nothing. Science cannot explain the profound rush and peace I feel when Erzuli steps inside me, and if you have met her even once, I think you know what I'm talking about." He closed his eyes briefly. I could tell he was relishing that one memory. "Dr. Grove," I continued, "there is a time to think and a time to feel. A good scientist knows when to do both. One should not exclude the other. He didn't say anything for a while. He just sat there with his eyes closed, carefully mulling over what I'd said. His prolonged silence made me nervous, and I was tempted to fill up the empty space with mindless chatter. I couldn't tell whether I'd blown it or not. Even though I was ambivalent at best about the whole Ruby Biotech deal, I didn't want to disappoint him. After several minutes, he opened his eyes, smiled, and the air between us felt instantly lighter. I knew I had passed the test. "Mr. Storm," he said, "that was a very thoughtful answer. Truly you are wise beyond your years." I knew the rest of the day would be relatively easy. And it was. For the next 2 hours, we talked about pretty much everything and anything: recent scientific discoveries, digital animation techniques, Crescent politics, philosophy, magic. It was nearly lunchtime when he finally got down to the nitty-gritty and made his offer. Ruby Biotech would give me a job starting a month after graduation, along with a 5,000 credit signing bonus to use any way I wished. "Take a vacation," he suggested. "Go out and see the world, but also rest up, because when you start with us, you will hit the ground running." For my first 6 years with them, I'd basically be employed half-time while they paid for my schooling and living expenses. Then, in return for them cultivating me, I was obligated to give them 6 more years of service. That was 12 years minimum. I'd be 29 years old, 12 years of living large with golden handcuffs. He gave me a week to think about it. He called Mama back into the room and explained the offer to her. I thought she was going to pass out from hyperventilating. I don't think she knew there were that many free-floating credits left in the world. She kept squeezing my hand so hard, I thought she was going to crush my fingers. Once in a while, she'd look into my eyes. The expression on her face was a queer mix of pride, affection, and menace. Yep, I knew she was proud of me. Yep, I knew she really loved me, but I also knew if I didn't sign with Ruby Biotech, she'd never forgive me. After the festivities were over, the 3 of us suited up, and Mr. Grove drove us in an unmarked shuttle to a small house the company owned in 7th Zone East. There, a scrumptious meal was waiting: shrimp gumbo, hearty and spicy, all manner of homemade bread still soft and warm, plus bread pudding and pecan pie. The shrimp might have been cloned in one of Ruby Biotech's secret labs, but it tasted just fine to me. I swear, if this was what they served in the company cafeteria, if I didn't watch myself, I'd be a fat slob in less than a month. Mama thought she had died and gone to heaven. Good food and a rich, gorgeous man sitting across the table, flirting shamelessly with her. Good Lord, I thought. Did David Grove flirt with everybody? After Dr. Grove dropped us back home and we geared down, Mama got on her phone and commenced to texting and shouting the good news to everybody she knew. I picked up the tablet that David Grove had left on the coffee table, loaded with the details of Ruby Biotech's offer. "The tablet is yours to keep," he informed me, "whether or not you sign, but I sincerely hope you do. We could use more people like you." I went upstairs to my room, locked the door, and fell on my bed. I didn't even bother to take off my shoes or undress. I was beat. I drifted in and out of a restless sleep. Sometimes, when I floated up towards wakefulness, I could hear Mama bragging to some friend or far-flung cousin about her brilliant son, about how he was going to work for Ruby Biotech and get rich and save the world one day. And when I drifted back down to dream, all I could see was David Grove in all his man glory, clad only in a gleaming white lab coat, tying my wrists together with thick gilded rope. I seriously did not know what to do. There was no denying the Ruby Biotech deal was the opportunity of a lifetime. I'd be able to go to any school I wanted. I could even study abroad if I wished, and the company would always be there to take care of me like some omnipresent nanny in the sky. But what would I lose? 12 years is an awfully long time to sign your life away. Even the Army only asks for 3. On the other hand, if I turned down the Ruby Biotech offer, What would it do to my mother? I knew I'd find a way to survive, but what would it do to her? Even though she'd fought fiercely for our neighborhood, she had always dreamed of finding a way out. I could be her way out. I could do my time, get situated, and eventually be able to afford a house in the first or second zone, at least. Moving there would add another 5 to 10 years to our life expectancies. Certainly that was worth 12 years of my life and a piece of my soul. I grew sick of tossing and turning and eventually got up. I undressed and knelt at the altar I kept in the corner of my room. I was too tired to do a full ritual, so I just lit some candles and incense and silently prayed for guidance. I hoped that would be enough. I got off my knees, opened my door, and shouted down to Mama that I was calling it a night. She didn't hear me at first. She was blabbing on the phone to Uncle Clarence, whom she hadn't said boo to in years, telling him the good news. "Good night, Zaden," she eventually called back. "Love you, baby. Sweet dreams." "Yeah, sweet," I thought as I climbed back into bed. I was hoping for something a little more meaty than sweet. I needed instruction, and that's precisely what I got. I dreamed I was hanging out by the tar pit wall, near where the 9th zone borders the 10th. I was alone, just aimlessly wandering around, running my hand along the concrete, admiring the new graffiti. Occasionally, a figure would emerge from the thick mist, and we'd each nod a greeting, but we wouldn't get beyond that. Then I saw her. She was a compact little thing, dressed in a cheap black high suit with a gleaming silver dagger stuck in her left boot. She walked with a cane shaped like a serpent, and even with that cane, she had a noticeable limp. Still, the other people around knew not to mess with her. She might have been short and a little gimpy, but she had the aura of a queen. She limped to within a foot of me and just stood there. I couldn't see her face. The visor on her helmet was morphed to opaque, which was odd because cheap black hat suits like hers didn't come with fancy morphing visors. "Who are you?" I asked, and for an answer, she took a step closer and removed her helmet. I tried to scream. What the hell did she think she was doing? That was certain suicide. She'd choke on the mist. But as soon as I calmed down enough to get a good look at her face, I realized she'd be just fine. Urzuli had come to me in her darker aspect. Urzuli Diantor, the warrior, the protector. I could tell by the 2 scars under her left eye and the way her eyes burned with the fierce love and anger. Her skin was a deep honey brown like my own, and although her face was slightly mannish and harsh, I found her uncommonly beautiful. "What do you want?" I asked as respectfully as I could, and before I knew it, she had me pinned against the concrete wall with her hand at my throat. "Listen," her body said to mine, and I had no choice but to submit. Somehow both our hat suits came off. We slid to the ground and went at it full throttle in the muck. I don't know how many people saw us, and frankly, I didn't care. It was just one of those things that had to be done. I knew my life depended on it. All the time she rode me, she did not speak. She couldn't. Urzuli Diantor is mute. But I received my answer in the grinding rhythm of our bodies, in the ecstatic beating of my heart. Not now, not now, not now. I awoke with those words upon my lips, a splitting headache and a raging heart-on. Judging from the amount of light seeping through the blinds, it was late morning. I stumbled from my bed, out my door, and straight into a bracing cold shower, hoping Mama didn't catch a glimpse of me en route. After I toweled myself off and dressed, I took the tablet Dr. Grove had given me off my nightstand and read through Ruby Biotech's offer once again. It was awfully tempting, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. No, I decided, not now. I went downstairs to the kitchen where Mama was waiting at the table with an expectant look on her face. "Morning, sleepyhead," she said. "What would you like for breakfast?" I stuck my head inside the refrigerator. She had already gone shopping, so the fridge was stocked with all manner of goodies, but I didn't really have an appetite. "Zaden," she asked, "what's wrong?" I got out the bottled water and poured some in the pot for tea. "Nothing," I replied. She crossed her arms and frowned. Can't be nothing. I grabbed a mug from the cabinet. Is it too early in the morning for truth? I asked. She chuckled quietly and shook her head. Zaden, it's far from early. It's almost noon. I was almost tempted to go up to your room and shake you to see if you were still among the living. The water came to a boil. I grabbed a random tea bag from one of the canisters on the counter and dropped it into the mug. What's bugging you? Mama asked. I said, I don't want to work for Ruby Biotech. There, it was out. What the hell? She said. Listen, I know in some ways it's the chance of a lifetime. She shot up from her chair. In all ways, it's the chance of a lifetime, she corrected. How the hell else are you going to get to school? I certainly can't afford to send you, and it'll take years for you to work and try to send yourself. I finally remembered to pour the hot water into the mug. The smell of almonds wafted up through the steam. School isn't everything, I mumbled. She walked up and slapped me. What in tarnation's name is wrong with you? She screeched. I teared up despite myself. I really didn't mean to cry. I can't work for Ruby Biotech, Mama. I'd die. What the hell are you talking about? It's not who I am. Zaden, you're all of 17 years old. You might be brilliant, but you really don't know who you are yet. Believe me, it's not set in stone. I placed a hand on her shoulder. She swatted it away like I was a housefly or a mosquito. I can't do this, I told her. It's 12 years of my life. I know how much this means to you, but it's my life I'd be signing away. Her lips trembled and her eyes welled up with tears. You're my son. It might be your life, but I gave it to you, and I will not stand idly by and watch while you throw that life away. I am not throwing my life away, I argued. I just refuse to sign it over to Ruby Biotech. Mama wiped her eyes and sat back down at the kitchen table. It was a while before she said anything, but when she finally spoke up, her voice was colder than liquid nitrogen. Fine. You want to waste your life? You waste your life. But I won't let you do it in my house. If you don't accept that offer, I want you out of here after graduation. That was no idle threat. I could tell by the simmering rage I saw in her eyes. I really didn't know what to think. Part of me, the bigger part, was heartbroken, while the other part was silently screaming, What the hell, woman? You hate the upper ninth that much? You want to live in the dome so bad you're willing to break up your family over it? You're serious about this? I asked, even though I knew what her answer would be. Serious as a heart attack. I finally took a sip of tea. It had gone cold and I'd forgotten to put a little honey in it, so it had a bitter edge. Fine, I said, slamming the mug on the counter. If that's the way it's going to be. I turned to leave the room. Wait, she called after me. That's it? Mama, you told me before this whole interview thing happened that this was my decision. Well, I've dreamed on it, and the decision has been made. I left the kitchen and went upstairs. I didn't call Ruby Biotech right away. I waited a couple of days, mulled the offer over again in my mind, and tried to force myself to feel differently. It didn't work. It always came back to those same two words, not now. Along with the tablet, David Grove had given me an engraved business card with only a single phone number printed on it. It was a number to call in case I had any questions and to inform the company of my final decision. I didn't recognize the exchange. My thought was that it was a private satellite line belonging to Ruby Biotech. I assumed it was Dr. Grove's direct number. So imagine my surprise when I dialed and someone else answered. Hello, the slightly harried voice on the other end of the line said, This is Dr. Lillian Ruby. I heard something like waves crashing in the background. Where the hell was he? Needless to say, I was speechless. Hello? The voice said again. Is anyone there? I'm Zaden Storm. I finally managed to reply. I spoke to David Grove a few days ago. Mr. Storm, I've been expecting to hear from you. Talk to me. I thought I heard another wave crash. Dr. Ruby, where are you if you don't mind my asking? I'm off the Pacific coast collecting water samples. Oh, so he really was out on the water somewhere. I've been thinking about your offer. And, he prompted, it is very generous, but I'm afraid I'll have to pass. He started laughing. I didn't know whether to get pissed or laugh along with him. Dr. Ruby, what's so funny? It appears, he replied in a bemused tone of voice, that Dr. Grove owes me a week's worth of dinner as soon as I return to the Crescent. I was still confused. Why? I asked. I knew you wouldn't sign. I don't know what confounded me more, that he and David Grove had made a wager about me, or that he seemed to know me better than I knew myself. So you're not angry? No, he replied. In fact, I would have been a little disappointed if you had. Why? I asked again. I swear I was starting to feel like a whiny 3-year-old who just keeps asking why forever. A mind like yours needs to fly. I don't want you to feel beholden to me. I was flabbergasted. I don't understand. Mr. Storm, sometimes when you are as talented as you are, people can force you to grow up a bit too fast. I have been working for a very long time, and although I'm doing what I love, I sometimes wish things had moved at a slower pace for me. I guess he knew what he was talking about. He had been a prodigy. He started Ruby Biotech when he was just a little older than me. In fact, some older folks in the Crescent still refer to him as the boy wonder of the bayou. Please, take the time to find your own way in the world. Then, when our paths cross again, you will be so much more of an asset to me. Trust me, Mr. Storm. I believe we will work together someday. Just not now. I nearly dropped the phone. There were those words again. Not now. And from somewhere else besides my own head. The dream had been true. I heard more waves crashing and some frantic voices in the background. Dr. Ruby said it had been good talking to me, but he had to go. I said goodbye and finally did drop my phone. I beat my bed with my fist to get grounded. The last few days had been so unreal. Everything had changed so much, and I wasn't sure if all that change was good. I knew I would survive, but I didn't know if Mama would change her mind. I strongly suspected she wouldn't. Still, I glanced over at my altar and made a mental list of the accoutrements I'd need to do a ritual of thanks.
Professional audiobooks in a click. Spoken.